Hey y'all, it's Bart. This is the first episode of Soccer for Us down here, the series in which I detail kind of my travels and the matches that I attend throughout the 2023 FIFA Women's World Cup. I am recording in the hallway of my hotel room right now, here in Sydney. Arrived today. That's arriving on Monday, July 24th. It is actually past that right now. It's Tuesday. It is a first match day for me here at the World Cup. I'll be attending the South Korea-Colombia match here in Sydney at noon here local, and 9 o'clock back in the States. So thanks for joining. Thanks for listening, and I hope you stay tuned. I'm going to try to do these just about every time that I go to a game, do a recording, and put it out for you all so you can kind of understand and appreciate the fun of the Women's World Cup. Make sure that you subscribe to Soccer Down Here to get all of these updates and all the other content that SDH puts out. And you can also support me and this show by going to buymeacoffee.com/soccerforuspod. All right, let's talk a little bit about this Women's World Cup. It's been a very different World Cup than I think we've seen in the past. Obviously, we have 32 teams, the first time we've seen that at a Women's World Cup. But also, you're seeing a lot of teams not get as one-sidedly beaten as we have seen before. We've seen a lot of lopsided results in previous Women's World Cups. Obviously, everyone remembers that USA 13-0 win over Thailand in 2019. The U.S. only getting a 3-0 win over Vietnam in their opener this time around, but still a very good and dominant performance. But you saw some other countries, Spain, for example, having like 40-some shots against Costa Rica, winning 3-0, one of those a penalty. So it's just been a little bit more of a competent performance from some of the lower teams, and that's proving to be a little bit tougher for the favorites in the tournament, and that's ultimately a good thing. So let's talk about that USA versus Vietnam match back on Friday, July 21st in the States. It was Saturday, July 22nd in Auckland, New Zealand, a full house at Eden Park. Love to see that. The U.S. always is well supported. U.S. fans always travel well for these Women's World Cups. 41,000, I think, was the announced attendance there at Eden Park, which is about full capacity. Not necessarily a first-choice lineup, but a very strong lineup. You had Julie Ertz instead of Alana Cook starting in the back. And then in the midfield, you had Savannah DeMello starting for Rose Lavelle, which both of those pretty much the like-for-like replacements. I think this was more about getting Ertz some playing time, and especially playing time at that center back position. I'm interested to see if she's truly going to play that the rest of the tournament, or how Cook works in. It could also just be a rotation of the three. But then DeMello getting the start over Sanchez could have been, Vlatko still wanting to get her a little bit more experience. But to me personally, I think that she's a little bit better replacement for Rose Lavelle. She's a little more in control of herself and the game. And I thought she looked a little timid at first, but she had a very good first half, and I think was very helpful for the U.S. to get the goals that they did, 3 goals before she exited. A pretty decent performance from Savannah DeMello in her first ever World Cup appearance. So I want to go through the positives and negatives throughout the game, and then talk about some individual players. The first positive that I felt was that possession. We had a lot of possession, but it didn't just lead to nowhere. We created a lot of chances. According to FOTMob, we had 10 big chances, took 21 total shots, and again, that 65% possession. I think people probably expected more. Vietnam was pretty decent at trying to build out of the back, but there came a point in time about, right at that middle third where the U.S. was able to fully clamp down and recover the ball pretty well. And that, for me, was a good thing from this match as well, was the ball recovery, because not only did we possess the ball well and possess it with intention to score, but then when we did lose it, and Vietnam had like 40-some clearances and a lot of interceptions, but when we did lose the ball, we were not necessarily immediately winning it back, but putting teams under pressure in their own half to recover the ball in that half and start attacks in our own attacking half. And that'll pay over well against teams like Netherlands or stronger teams that we may face in this tournament. I also thought that we did a really good job to be quick to get the lead. From the off, we were attacking. I thought we should have, I thought we should have got a penalty when Trinity Rodman went down in the box. I think 2 minutes in, it was very clearly a foul that the referee didn't call. But I thought that was good to see us try to get out on top quick. It could have been 3-0 by halftime. It unfortunately wasn't. Alex Morgan missed a penalty, but it really could have been a bigger score line had we finished the chances. That's the negative that I want to talk about, but those positives still, though, are that we were trying to get a quick goal. We were very good at recovering the ball in our own attacking half, and we had intentional possession leading to chances. However, some of the negatives were that we relied too heavily on crosses. As I mentioned, Vietnam had 40 clearances. A lot of those came from crosses that weren't really aimed at anyone, just trying to put the ball in the box. That's not necessarily the worst, strategy against a team like Vietnam, because in the past, these types of teams would not have been able to be as competent and structured in the back. And a lot of times their clearances are either missed or shanked or put right at a U.S. player. And this time around, Vietnam didn't do that. But we relied too heavily on just crosses from wide. We were also not great on set pieces. I thought the delivery was okay. I just don't think we were threatening enough. I do credit the Vietnamese goalkeeper. She was very good at claiming the ball in her box and coming out, disrupting what we would have wanted to have, like maybe a free header. But that needs to improve as we go through the tournament. We definitely need to try to use our advantage on set pieces. And we just didn't really do that against Vietnam. And then I think the biggest negative, and the one that probably stuck out for most people, was the lack of focus on finishing. We created, like I mentioned, 10 big chances. We had 21 total shots. Not many of those were truly shots on target. And that's concerning because we created a lot of chances. We got the ball in dangerous areas inside the box. But those shots didn't go on goal. They were either shanked or put wide or over the top, barely. But we need to do better to put balls on frame because that's how you're going to score. I mean, that sounds as simple as it is. I can't say it any simpler. If you're not going to put the ball on target, you're not going to score. And when you create so many big chances, you need to try to put the opposing goalkeeper under real pressure and force her to make saves. Then hopefully one of our very good attacking players can get the rebound too. So we need to do better at being determined and focused on finishing, because I think had we had a little bit more of that dialed-in mentality against Vietnam, probably would have been looking at 6-7-0, but unfortunately it wasn't. And that's sometimes how football goes. I mean, if you're talking about an international tournament that you have to play possibly 7 matches, you can't expect to be dialed in 100% all the time. And so this was the game where you could afford to be not as mentally sharp. Obviously, the game against Netherlands on the 26th/27th, that is the game that you have to be dialed in. You have to be fully mentally prepared, focused, and engaged with the game. And this Vietnam game, as you saw, we didn't play at our best, and we were still able to win pretty handily and control the match throughout. So let's move on to some players I just want to highlight. Alex Morgan, she was fine throughout most of the game, but she did miss that penalty, and I think that's going to color a lot of how people think of her from this match. That missed penalty, obviously, late in the first half, could have put us up 2-0. We ended up getting the second goal because Sophia Smith scored in the 8 minutes of stoppage time, maybe 9 minutes once it was all said and done, that we had in that first half. But Morgan needs to, when I talk about focus and dialed it in, that needs to be Alex Morgan, because it was a bad penalty kick take. We've seen her make some before, but we've seen her miss too many. And she's got to be better, because we're going to need her to bury these throughout the tournament, because there's been a lot of penalty kicks awarded this tournament. If you've been keeping up, I think the first 7 matches had a penalty kick in it, and there's been plenty more since. I thought Sophia Smith was very good, but she does need to try to combine with her teammates a little bit more. She was a little too happy to just go and try and beat a defender and put a cross in, and oftentimes she didn't beat that defender. She had a cross blocked that would go out of bounds, and for Soph That's where I want her to just be a little bit more patient and trust in herself to beat the player and actually attack them inside the box. Don't just try to do one move, and if it doesn't work, get a cross off. Try to actually beat them, get inside the penalty area, and force the defenders to defend in last-ditch efforts, because that's where you're going to get possible penalty kicks. That's where you'll possibly get, just other good opportunities for your teammates. And I think that was, again, when we go back to focusing too much or relying too much on crossing, it wasn't productive crossing. It was just aimless and kind of last chance saloon, if you will, where it was like, well, I don't have anything else to do, so I'm just going to hit the ball in. Unfortunately, we also had way too many times that we just hit the ball in first time. So Smith needs to do a better job of not just using her teammates, but I think when she gets in those isolated wing areas, trust herself to beat the defender, or at least try to get the defender in the box, force them to defend closer to their goal. As I said, I thought DeMello looked a little timid in her first World Cup match, but she recovered very well. However, Naomi Girma did not look phased. She did not look timid. She did not look nervous whatsoever. That woman is... I'm so glad that she plays for the U.S. national team, because she is so calm, cool, and collected all the time while also being so freaking good. She and Ertz were very good back there, and I think it's just a testament to the fact that Vietnam really had no scoring opportunities, because it's not that they didn't have opportunities to break, but Ertz and Girma, specifically Girma, was so good at cleaning those things up without having to make big plays. And that was huge. I thought she was so instrumental also in the build-up that we had, because she wasn't just trying to clear the ball up the field. She was trying to find attacking players and teammates to build possession. And lastly, and I don't want to end too much on a bad note, but I think it just needs to be said that Megan Rapinoe was not very good today, or not very good in this game. And it looked like she was just too slow to even keep up with the international game. Obviously, she's the elder statesman of the group. Her fourth World Cup, she hit 200 caps she hit 200 caps in this game when she came on in the second half. And I know she's been battling injury, so I understand why Vlatko got her in, but I really don't know if we need to see her the rest of the tournament, to be quite honest. Lynn Williams, Alyssa Thompson, those are your backup wingers, and they need to be utilized more often. Maybe also it's possible that Vlatko maybe plans to play Lynn against the Netherlands more, so, not playing her against Vietnam made sense, but we don't need to see any more Megan Rapinoe, especially in any game that has any sort of consequence or something hanging in the balance, because she was not very good. She didn't really even help make us better as a team. She combined okay, but once it came time for her to actually produce something, it fell apart. But overall, again, I think this was a pretty good performance. You look at the stats, and outside of the 3-0 goal differential, everything else was very good. And if you play like that again against like the Netherlands or Portugal, you're going to get a win. And that's all that matters. Again, the game against the Netherlands is the most important match of this group, because if you beat that, Netherlands cannot get 9 points. They obviously beat Portugal 1-0, so you're still on top with a good goal differential. But that goal differential can just be inconsequential if you beat the Netherlands on Wednesday/Thursday. And then you go into Portugal only needing a draw or possibly not that big of a loss, and you're looking good. So this Vietnam game, I think people are going to make a lot about it not being, a wider scoreline. I thought Vietnam played very well. As I like to say, both teams play the game. Vietnam played their game incredibly well, clearing balls out of the box, blocking shots, goalkeeper playing well. And the U.S. thought they still played very well, but, they played a very tough team to break down. I thought they broke them down enough, but credit to Vietnam for being a resolute defensive team and not being afraid to defend in last-ditch efforts. Next, the U.S. is going to be playing Netherlands. That is on Wednesday, July 26th at 9 p.m. Eastern. That is on Thursday, July 27th at 1 Auckland time. Wellington time. That game is in Wellington at Wellington Regional Stadium, also known as Sky Stadium, which is a big old yellow circle. I will be at that match. I'm very excited. I will have a recap and kind of just like vibes reaction the next day to kind of relay to you all the feeling and experience and passion that comes in these Women's World Cups. And like I said, I'll also be keeping track of all the other games that I'm going to throughout this tournament. So please follow me on Twitter at SoccerForUSPod. Support the show at buymeacoffee.com/SoccerForUSPod. Thanks again to everyone for listening to Soccer for Us. I am Bart. I'm out.